So jQuery wants simplified web development by abstracting away complexities. And I think AI needs the same today. So nearly 20 years ago, maybe some of you remember that, jQuery changed the way we build web applications. It made it easier to manipulate the DOM, handle events, and create animations when browsers at the time were full of quirks. It was a game changer for developers like you and me because it allowed us to focus on what we wanted to achieve. And today, we face a similar challenge with GenAI. So every week, we have new tools, new models, new approaches, and trying to get productive with GenAI while keeping up with all these changes can be exhausting. So I'm sure this code you see here looks somehow familiar. So this code is valid JavaScript that makes use of GenAI. And you'll see during this talk that it's way more than just a fancy wrapper for prompts. So you already know that I work at Microsoft. But on my free time, I maintain multiple open source projects. And I'm always looking for ways to make it more manageable, given that I also happen to have 2 kids at home. And answering issues like this to explain that you need some context to be able to help, or looking through like all the changes in a big PR, trying to figure out what was the initial intent behind all these changes, this all takes time. And to be honest, that's not really the fun part of open source, at least for me. Since I've been working with GenAI for a while now, I thought that it could actually be useful for use cases like this, if I could make it work without spending too much effort. And that's how I initially started looking into GenAIScript. So GenAIScript is an open source JavaScript toolbox for GenAI, allowing you to create even agents to do complex tasks for you, just as simple as writing a script. So it's really meant to be a developer tool, and it works best when it's used within a project repository. But really, instead of telling you about like all its extensive set of features, it's probably better that I can show you directly how it works. Do you like live demos? OK. Just need to find my cursor. And here it is. So let's just zoom it a bit. So you've seen that I've created this new JavaScript file. So you may have already noticed it. But it has this .genai.js extension, and this is what actually enables the GenAIScript environment. So of course, it works with TypeScript, and you can use like all your regular JavaScript modules. So now let's start with the prompt. What I want to do is to build a script to help me review GitHub issues. So to create a prompt, I'm using this tag template function, the $1, the one you've seen in the beginning. So for my prompt, let's just give the AI some role. You're an expert software engineer with 20 years of open source experience. Just a quick tip, if you're trying to do the same thing, don't go too high with this, otherwise the AI starts to get a bit grumpy. I can somehow relate with that. Now for the task. So I wanted to review a GitHub issue. In particular, I wanted to review like the title and body of the issue, and I want the feedback to be reported and added as a comment to the issue, and then give it some detailed instruction. OK, I have my prompt, but if you try to do like anything useful from GenAI, you already know like the big challenge is not the prompt, it's the data. You need to give the AI some context so it can actually do something useful for you. So to do that with GenAIScript, you can use the define function to add some context. So the dev function. You give it a name, so I want to define what's title and body in there. And from there, I have multiple options. I can either use like just a regular JavaScript object. You can use a string. You can use a path to some document on your file system. It supports like many kind of documents. You can use a URL to fetch something directly from the web. You have many options. So now I need to define what's title and body, and no Copilot, that's not what I want to do. And GenAIScript provides many helpers within the GenAIScript context to help you like do something useful. And in that case, there's already like a GitHub helper. You can see that there's many things that I can do in there. So what I want to do is just retrieve an issue. It tries to be smart by using like the defined environment variable. So it will look if there's like, for example, a GitHub issue defined somewhere in the environment. So if I was like, just in GitHub context, this script will be enough to work. But I want to be able to test it locally. So let's just say that the GitHub issue number I want to retrieve will be set by env.var.issue. And now something else, I can use the script function to define some metadata about my script. Like, for example, says that, OK, for this script to be actually working, I need a parameter. So I could use JSON schema, I could use Zod, or I could just pass in like the shape of the object. So I just want an issue, and it needs to be like the number of the issue that I want to review. Now that I have my script, let's try to run it. You may have noticed this very little GenAI button here at the top. And from there, I have two options. It's probably a bit small, but either I can run the script directly, or I can debug it. Because it's just regular JavaScript code, I can just put breakpoints, and it will run, if I run the debug option, the regular VS Code debugger, so I can go step by step and try to understand in case something goes wrong. For now, let's just run this script. So I've told it that I need the GitHub issue number, so let's just go with 1. So it's trying to run my script, already get some results, but without knowing the context, it's not really useful. So you have in this output window the option to go and look deep into what actually happened, like to try, just in case something goes wrong and you have complex script, to try to understand what's happening. But for this simple use case, we can just take a look at the chat messages that were sent to the AI model. So in the user prompt, you can see the context that was defined using here this fence title and body. So naturally a useful issue, like nothing worse, just help me please, OK. You can see our prompt. And also something interesting, GenAIScript injected some system prompt for us. Like we have this responsible AI section. We have a section that formats the output as Markdown. This is the default. And it tries to be smart by trying to understand what you're trying to do. And since I used the GitHub helper, it also added some context, like the name of the GitHub repository I'm using and the GitHub API URL. So, OK, I have a script that seems to work. Now, what I want to do is run this on GitHub. So to do that, I will be creating like a GitHub action. So I won't dive too much into it. But GitHub Actions allows you to run workflows that are triggered by specific events on GitHub, like someone's creating an issue or making some changes to it. And ultimately, the only thing that I need to do to run this script is run this command in there. So using npx to run the GenAIScript package, what I want to do is run the issue review script, so the one I just wrote before. And I'm using the pull request command option to actually tell GenAIScript that I want the output of this script to be added as a command on the issue thread or the pull request thread. It's the same thing for GitHub. So. And I can also use like this flag to, just in case something goes wrong, have all the debug traces right into the GitHub action, so I can just take a look at what happened. To make this script work, I need to define some environment variable, like a GitHub token with some permissions, so it can read the issue, and have the rights also to add the commands, the GitHub issue number, so it knows which issue it needs to review, so this is something also provided by GitHub, and some configuration, so it have access to an AI model to be able to run the script. And the results when added to repo, looks something like this. So, okay, I just created like this random issue, does not work, help me. And after this workflow run, you get this command that was added. So in this case, I hope that the person that created this issue will see these commands and actually come back to give more context so I can help it. And in case the issue was properly formatted, I might also get some insights that will make me gain some time when looking through it. So great, now let's do something a bit different. So when I work on a talk, like the one I'm doing today, I'm always looking for nice backgrounds for my slides, like the ones you've seen at the beginning. So I wanted to see if I could use a script to do that. So again, let's start with the prompt. Because I'm not very good at creating prompts for this images model, I'll use this text model to actually build the prompt for me. What I'll give it is just some keywords, so I'll name it query. And I want it to create like a proper prompt that will be sent to a GenAI image model that will be suitable to generate a background image that I could use in a presentation. And something interesting is that I want it to generate 3 images, so I can have choice using the same prompt. And I want it to do that using some tool that I named GenImage. OK, so I created a prompt that orchestrates some of the work that I could have done manually by scripting everything. So just like before, let's define some context. So in that case, just the keywords that I will be passing to this prompt, so the query. And for that, I will be using env.var.question. Now, the interesting part is how I can define the GenImage tool. So to do that, I will be using the define tool function, the def tool. So when you create a tool, you need to give it a name, GenImage, what it's useful for, generate an image, some parameters. Again, could be JSON schema, ZOD, or just the shape of the object, so the prompt. And now the function that will be run when the AI decides to actually call this tool. So I've already told you that GenAIScript provides many helpers. You have one to generate an image based on a prompt. You also have helpers to like manipulate audio or videos. Lots of stuff already built in. And once I have my image, I'll just do something very simple. I'll add some markdown to the output to preview my image with a link. So nothing fancy in there. And that's it. Now, something also interesting with GenAIScript is that just by combining this prompt in there and the tool, it doesn't look much, but I've actually created a very simple agent. So an agent is nothing more than just one prompt combined with one or more tool. And that's just what I did. Something else that's interesting is that I can actually call my scripts directly from GitHub Copilot. So if you're using GitHub Copilot, you can use the add command to delegate some of your question to extension. So in this case, I want to use the GenAIScript extension. I have the option to run some commands. So let's just use the run command. I want to run the background script, and I'll just give it some keywords, like I want something like geometric and blue. And now I will use my scripts to actually generate some images. So just to gain some time, let's just take a look at like a previous result. So OK, I already ran this prompt before, geometric and blue. And you can see that I got these 3 images. I can just click on one, see OK if it's fine for my slides. So maybe something I could use for like my next presentation. Now let's try to do something else. In my early open source project, I just like put some code on GitHub and didn't bother to automate anything. But at some point, when you have users starting to use your project, they care about the change that you make to that project. And I got to the point where people were just asking, hey, it's nice that you released like this new version, but what changed? It would be nice if we could have like a changelog for that. And I was, OK, again, not the most fun part to do with open source, writing like changelogs manually, especially if you weren't very diligent, like with the commits. So let's try to see if I could use GenAI to help me with this whole project. So again, starting with the prompt. This time what I want is actually to create a file. I want to create a changelog.md file. And I want this script to include, let's say, the list of changes based on the last 15 commits. On this repo, I don't have a git tag, but I could have said since the last tag, for example, if you tag your releases. And then some detail about what I want in my changelog. So I could have gone scripting git commands manually, but instead I'm a bit lazy, and I want to actually delegate that work to an agent to do that for me. So in GenAIScript, to define an agent, yeah, you might have guessed it, you can use the define agent function, def agent. Just like tools, you give it a name, you give it a description, so what it's useful for. And I just said it before, an agent is the combination of a prompt. So in this case, you're just a helpful LLM agent that can use git commands to answer the question in query. And I could have defined my own wrapper tool around the Git CLI, but there's already many helpers and agents built in into GenAIScript. So I will be using the built-in one. So system.git is the built-in Git tool wrapper around the Git CLI. And again, that's it. It does not look much again, but this very simple script is actually a very simple multi-agent workflow. You might wonder, OK, I see an agent. Where are the other ones? When you define an agent, you're also defining a tool. That's why it has a name, because it can be called by another prompt. And here we have my orchestrator prompt. I want to be able to retrieve my Git changes, and it will be giving this task about fetching my commits to this agent, which happen to be a tool, and can do all sorts of subtasks. So you can create very complex workflow based on that. So let's try running it. And now comes the fun part of live demos, maybe. And yeah, something nice. So you can see that I have the regular GenAIScript output window, but I also have something interesting in there. I have this refactor preview window from VS Code. Let's just zoom out a bit. And you can see that I wanted it to create a file, and that's what it's trying to do, changelog.md. And you can see the content of my changelog. So yeah, something really nice. Now, let's come back in there. And you might still wonder how far this kind of scripts can be useful in your own projects. So for example, think about automated refactoring. Angular, in a few versions ago, introduced a new template syntax. If you have a big project that we're using the old syntax, it can be painful if you want to go through all your old components and migrate to the new syntax. Or it could be even worse if you try using the Angular CLI frameworks to do the migration for you. I don't know if some of you try to do that. But with GenAIScript, you have all sorts of built-in support for navigating the file system and even do more complex abstract syntax tree manipulation, like going deep into your code with the knowledge of function, parameters, even commands. So really, writing difficult scripts like migrating all your components to a new syntax can become way easier with using a prompt instead. So there's really way more to GenAIScript than what I can show you in 20 minutes. And the thing I learned from the past few months I've been using it is that if there's a fancy new AI tool or pattern that you've heard about that just came out, there are really good chances that it's either already built into GenAIScript or it will come very soon. But not to my regrets, there's still one thing that you have to keep in mind when using it, is that right now it's built as a tool for you to use rather than a real framework to build application with it. But yeah, I really hope that in some close future, we have some GenAI frameworks that gets inspired by the simplicity of GenAIScript, because yeah, I kind of find that it's nice. Now, if you feel like GenAIScript could help you automate some of your tasks, but you don't know where to start, you don't know, you don't really want to spend too much time with digging with all the GenAI quirks, really, I think GenAIScript is actually a good place to begin. So, thank you.